Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Hump Day.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's Hump Day.
Woo-hoo!
Ronnie, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico?
I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day!
Get happy.
Yeah.
Get Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
That's right, folks. Today's Hump Day, and we love Hump Day here. Hump Day is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend. Sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I always like to say, the fun is in the trying. Now, Mike, unfortunately, will not be joining us today, so it's going to be us. It's going to be me. It's going to be you. It's going to be your comments. If you're watching us live, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Rumble, which, by the way, is probably the best place to watch us live because, you know, they don't censor over at Rumble. They allow people to exercise their right to free speech. So anyway, we're having a good time. We're going to continue to have a good time, and we hope that you will join us. Give us a comment. If you got something to say, we would love to hear it. We would love to kind of, chop it up. For me, it's always better when I'm having a conversation. I would much rather have a conversation with you than just kind of sit here and, ramble on and on and on. Although I am good at it, just so you know, I can ramble on and on, but I'd rather not. I'd rather this be a conversation between you and I. So do me a favor. Go ahead. Drop us a comment. I'll be looking for it. If I find it to be interesting, I'll go ahead and I'll share it with the audience. And once again, I don't have to agree with it. I just have to find it interesting. And if I do find it interesting, well, then, hey, let me clarify. If I find it interesting and I disagree with it, well, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll, what shall we say? We will go ahead and appropriately mock you. Or not mock you. We may just kind of bring up and share with you why I may share with you why I disagree with your particular comment. Also want to remind you, if you're going to be in Las Vegas, that's right, Las Vegas for SHOT Show. That's right. Didn't remember that, huh? SHOT Show is right around the corner. It's going to be taking place next week. That's right, next week in Las Vegas. We're going to be there. We're going to be there from Monday to Friday. We'll be there all week, and Monday evening, we're going to have a nice little party for y'all. It's the welcome party for the SHOT Show 2025, brought to you by Arms Room Radio, The Rundown, Next Level Training, Imperium Strategic Group, Hog Holsters, Hitman Industries, T6, GunTech USA, and Lion Arms and FRCC. Folks, it's going to be at the Hofbrau House starting at 7 o'clock, ending around 10 p.m. There's going to be free food, free beer. Come on out. Now, when I say free food, we're doing appetizers. We're not doing full-blown meals. So if you're coming there incredibly hungry, well, just be prepared to eat a bunch of sausages. I know. Well, it does tend to be a bit of a sausage fest at SHOT Show, but hey, at least they bring out the big guns, right? Right. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna have a good time. We invite y'all to come on out. There'll be door prizes. There'll be once again beer and food, but most importantly, there will be good folks from the firearms community there to have good conversations with. So we'd encourage you to come on out and have a good time. Also want to take a quick minute before we get started in the program to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you. If you're looking to do a rebuild or maybe you just want to do a brand new build, start at hitmanindustries.net. They've got all types of barrels, including Glock barrels, available for you today. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working hard behind enemy lines in order to help elect conservatives to all level of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out today at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. And then finally, weather's changing, or the weather's changed, and obviously you need to make sure that you have the appropriate gear in order to be able to take advantage of that, whether it's cold weather gear, wet weather gear, maybe you need something for the wind, indoor, outdoor, whatever you need. You can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection. They have competitive prices, fast shipping. Check them out today. Once again, veteran owned and operated, uscombatgear.com. All right, our first story today. I don't know how newsworthy it necessarily is, but I do know that it is definitely weird. This is an important conversation for us to have because I need you to understand something. One of the reasons why we were so successful in this last election cycle is because the Democratic Party, the left, has gone so far off the rails that the average person who in some cases consider themselves to be very moderate, in some cases consider themselves to be flat out liberals, are looking at the political dichotomy. They're looking at the ground shifting directly under their feet and finding them on the right side of the political aisle. Not because necessarily they have moved, but they finally realize that the people that they used to call their party mates, the people who agreed with them, they've lost their damn minds. That's right, they've lost their minds. And Craig, what do you mean when you say that? Well, I want to use this as an example. So there was a bill that was before that is before the House of Representatives that did basically one thing. It basically dealt with an issue that's really kind of not just I used to say 60-40 issue, but it's really an 80-20 issue. And that is the overwhelming belief by Americans that males should not be going into women's or in particular girls' bathrooms. And that biological males, basically males, should not be participating in girls' sports. So Congress, or the House of Representatives, the Republicans in the House of Representatives, introduced a bill that would basically ban it nationwide, basically saying, no, if you are a male, you go into the male bathroom. If you are a male, you do not get to compete in women's sports, right? Well, the Democratic leader, when I say the Democratic leader, I mean the House, the minority leader in the Democratic Party, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, came out and he came out to say that trans athlete ban bill will unleash predators on girls, right? So in other words, despite the evidence that we have seen so far where you have had males claiming to be women or girls going into girls' locker rooms or women's locker rooms, and in some cases, we're talking being, sexually promiscuous. When I say sexually promiscuous, I mean kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Disrobing and walking around in full male nudity in front of women, basically being exhibitionists. We've had instances in one school where a male student claiming to be a woman, a female student, raped a student. We've definitely seen instances where they've been put in women's prisons and raped female prisoners. So when you think about predators, the whole point of this, well, twofold. Number one, to make sure girls aren't victims of predators. But then number two, to make sure that women have an opportunity to compete fairly in athletic events. Not having to compete against those who have a biological advantage over them. Well, initially, no one really knew what the heck he was talking about. But Jeffries decided to go on MSNBC and offer an explanation, if that's what you want to call it, as to why Democrats believe the way that they do on this particular issue. And I wanted to put it before you. I wanted to put it before the jury and see what you thought of the minority leader's explanation.
Their legislation is irresponsible. Effectively, what it would do is sanction, without any guardrails, adults, including predators, for engaging in inspections of genitalia in children as young as 4 years old. Now, in the sports arena, we've seen repeated instances of sexual abuse. Gymnastics, that's been the case. In wrestling, that's been the case. In football, that's been the case. And in many other areas. And to have the federal government weigh in aggressively and sanction this type of invasive inspections clearly would create a situation where childhood predators would be unleashed on the children of this country. And that's why you saw a significant number of Democrats say this is federal government overreach and it's unacceptable.
All right. So first of all, I don't know anything about necessarily the bill saying anything about inspections. But now let me ask you, do you really believe that in these cases, do you really believe that that Republicans are advocating for people, individuals, whatever you want to call them, to be able to go in and inspect the genitalia of children as young as 4 years old? I'm going to go as far as to say he's full of crap. Because in most of these cases, we're talking about kids who are post-pubescent, meaning we're talking about teenagers. We're talking about instances, in particular in sports, where once a child, a male, a biological male, has gone through puberty, they now have a significant physical advantage over females of the same age. That's who we're talking about specifically here. When we're talking about going into a quote unquote girls' bathroom, when we're talking about access to the restroom, we're talking about, once again, those who've gone through puberty, those who are now in the midst of, they're now more than likely hormones are starting to flow, unless, of course, they've taken hormone blockers of some kind. They're now starting to get into an area where they might be sexually active or engaged, or might, if they are a sexual predator, might be at the very beginning of that, thinking of exploring whatever that. We're not talking about little kids. We're talking about protecting little kids from them. That's what we're talking about. What is this idiot? What is this moron talking about? Folks, listen, he thinks you're stupid. He really does believe that you are stupid. He believes that you don't understand basic biology. That's what Hakeem Jeffries is counting on. And the very fact that he comes out and once again, I'm shocked that and maybe I have to go back and listen to it again, but I completely missed him calling out the extreme MAGA Republicans, because it seems like that's a term he uses almost every single time. If he didn't use it, well, then this would be the second time, and only the second time, that I can ever recall him not referring to Republicans as extreme MAGA Republicans. But all that having been said, I think his excuse is not flying with me. It just isn't. This is the other thing. So let's say that locals do decide they want to have some sort of, well, why wouldn't locals who are saying that their goal in implementing this is to protect children from predators, what makes you believe they wouldn't put in safeguards? Why does the federal government have to dictate and say what those safeguards are? What they're doing is they're protecting children across the board, because in areas like California, in areas like New York, they don't want to protect kids. They believe in victimizing children. They believe in making sure that little girls will not have equal opportunity to compete and win in sports. They want to potentially put them in a situation where they are going to be harmed or hurt by competing against someone who is bigger, stronger, has greater bone density, greater muscle mass. Put them on the same exact field in contact sports where they can be injured, harmed. And you can say all you want, well, That's just speculation. It's already happening. It's already happened. Already happened. And states like places like states like California are encouraging it. They are encouraging it because in their eyes, there's no difference between men and women. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, we are equal, but we are not the same. Let me say that again. We are equal, but we are not the same. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. You've heard of that book, right? All the other 72 genders are from Uranus. I know, funny joke. But the point that I'm making here, folks, is this is how crazy and whacked out Democrats are. You need to understand this. What really gets me is he wants to argue that Democrats are all about protecting taxpayers. They're not. This is the same Democratic Party that was just given an opportunity to vote to, at the very least, hand over to ICE for apprehension illegal immigrants who are committing crimes here in the United States. With the exception of a handful of Democrats, they all voted against it, including Hakeem Jeffries. Every Democrat voted against it, except for a handful. But they want to protect taxpayers. Their goal in their communications is to in what they're saying is they want to work with Republicans in order to help protect tax-paying Americans. It is a lie. It is a full-blown, flat-out lie. And no, that doesn't mean that there are not members of the Democratic caucus who are interested in doing that. But most of them either aren't interested in doing it or they're too cowardly to stand up against the Democratic Party leadership there in the House, against the labor unions, against the trial lawyers, against the LGBTQ, or as Dave Chappelle would like to refer to them, the alphabet mafia. They refuse to stand up to them and say, you know, I'm with you on these things. And this is what I don't get, right? In the Republican Party, we seem to be able to do this. We can say, I'm with you on these things, but I can't get down with this right here. So I'm not going to be with you. I don't understand why Democrats can't do that. I hope more would, because I honestly believe that our nation, our politics, and our policy benefits from a functional two-party system where you have two parties that are functional, that can present different perspectives on issues so that we can see the issue as a whole and arrive at what hopefully can be a compromise position that addresses all of the issues and all of everyone's issues and everyone's concerns, or at least as many as possible. But we do not have a functional Democratic Party right now. We have a Democratic Party that does not know nor understand basic common sense. As I like to say, common sense is actually uncommon sense. And what the Democratic Party promotes is this common nonsense that them, the media, and academia have been pushing now for generations. And they've brainwashed people into believing things that are true, to believe things that simply are not true, right? They come to believe that lies are the truth and truth is lies. Anyway. Moving right along, the confirmation hearings for Trump's appointees is continuing there on Capitol Hill. And let's just say that his nominees, well, they are killing it. Let's start with one that's going to be, I don't think there was ever a doubt in the world that Marco Rubio would be confirmed as the Secretary of State. But I wanted to share this one clip because I think it wholly expresses multiple different things about Marco Rubio that I've always liked about him. Not that I don't have my issues with him, but I'm going to go ahead and play the clip and we'll talk about it on the flip side.
Out of the triumphalism of the end of the long Cold War emerged a bipartisan consensus. And this consensus was that we had reached the end of history, that all of the nations of the world would now become members of the democratic Western-led community, that a foreign policy that served the national interest could now be replaced by one that served the liberal world order, and that all mankind was now destined to abandon national sovereignty and national identity and would instead become one human family and citizens of the world. This wasn't just a fantasy. We now know it was a dangerous delusion. Here in America and in many of the advanced economies across the world, an almost religious commitment to free and unfettered trade at the expense of our national economy shrunk the middle class, left the working class in crisis, collapsed our industrial capacity, and has pushed critical supply chains into the hands of adversaries and of rivals. An irrational zeal for maximum freedom of movement of people has resulted in a historic mass migration crisis here in America, but also around the world. It's one that threatens the stability of societies and of governments. Across the West, governments now censor and even prosecute domestic political opponents. Meanwhile, radical jihadists openly march in the streets and sadly drive vehicles into our people. While America far too often continued to prioritize the global order above our core national interests, other nations continue to act the way countries have always acted and always will, in what they perceive to be their best interest. And instead of folding into the post-Cold War global order, they have manipulated it to serve their interests at the expense of ours. The post-war global order is not just obsolete, it is now a weapon being used against us. And all this has led to a moment in which we must now confront the single greatest risk of geopolitical instability and of generational global crisis in the lifetime of anyone alive and in this room today.
I don't think that there is, only because I don't say that there's nobody. There are very few people in political circles who better understand the threat of globalism and possess the ability to communicate effectively about that threat than Senator Marco Rubio. He's always been a phenomenal communicator. I think in many cases he does a very good job of taking Republican values and beliefs and also taking very challenging or very complex issues and breaking them down in an intellectual manner so that the average person can understand them. And what he's talking about here was he talked about cause and effect, and in particular what that meant for the average person when it comes to this concept of globalism. And I really believe that when it comes to foreign policy, he has really taken in these few minutes, in these 2+ minutes, he really broke down the difference between Republicans, or most Republicans, and most Democrats. In really the understanding the America First perspective, right? America First is not America only. But the reason why America First has to be talked about, the reason why it has to be brought up and discussed, is because once the Soviet Union was not the big bad bully on the other side, there was this belief that now we can export democracy to the world. And there were many. When he talks about those on the left, well, you got most Democrats. And when you talk about those on the right, you got the Bush Republicans who believed that all we have to do is go out there and say, look, how good democracy has been to us, and that they will embrace it and that they will make it theirs. And then all the world will be free. All the world will live under the same principles and values. And because we'll all be living under the same principles and values, it'll be okay if we subject our people to the morals, mores, and decisions and laws of a global community. But here's the problem. That global community never accepted our principles. They never bought into our values. They never accepted or were interested in American exceptionalism. They're not interested. They're not buying it. They don't want it. Throughout the Middle East, where we have tried to create democracies, we have found that it has failed over and over again. When given the opportunity to democratically elect their leaders and vote for their leaders, they vote for religious extremists, for people who want to put Sharia law in place, because those are their values. You can, I'm not even going to talk to whether those values are good or bad. We won't even talk about that. What I can say is they are different. They are definitely different. I have my perspective on whether they are better or worse, but that's not for the discussion here. What he also notes is that these countries, in particular the leadership of these countries, which tend to not be democratic, do as countries have always done. They make decisions that are in their best interests. Let me say that again. They make decisions that are in their best interest. Their country's best interest? No. Their best interest, as in those leaders. And as they have done that, they have taken advantage of the United States. And a great example, there's no better example, quite frankly, than when it comes to the environmental movement, where you got Democrats, you got the Obamas of the world, you got the Bidens of the world to agree to environmental accords that hamstrung the U.S. economy, while at the same time allowing the world's worst polluters, China, India, Mexico, to do whatever the hell they want. All in the name of this global, wait a minute. If you bought into the values, then shouldn't you be held to the same thing that we are? Right? Shouldn't you? If you believe in quote unquote human rights, right, and workers' rights, then shouldn't you have the same protections on your workers there in Mexico that we have here in the United States? No, they don't do that. They create a playing field that is uneven, that once again hamstrings the U.S. economy, while at the same time allowing them to run roughshod over us. And what Marco Rubio is saying here is, we're not doing that anymore. We are not doing that anymore. We are going to engage in the world first and foremost when, where, and how it benefits us. And when I say us, I mean we the people. Because here in the United States, the government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if it's not, well, just read the Declaration of Independence. That tells you what your options are at that point. But that's kind of the point of this whole thing. And he's saying that is going to be our perspective from now on, whether it's the economy and economic sanctions, whether it's the global war on terror, whether it's healthcare resources, whatever it is going to be, our foreign policy is going to be based on what works best for us and our allies. Let me say that again, and our allies, which is kind of a sign to some of the rest of you nations out there. You probably want to be our allies. Otherwise, then you're not in our consideration. What's best for you is further down the pecking order. We'll just say that. It's not that there is no consideration. It's just you get less consideration. And I'm okay with that. And I think most Americans are okay with that, because we are now seeing the result of allowing others to dictate what our policies are. And we're not cool with it. Now, Marco Rubio was not the only one who did well today on Capitol Hill. We also had Pamela Bondi, who is the Attorney General in Florida, who is now, I don't know if I think she's the former Attorney General. I don't remember if she's the current or former, but she is Trump's nominee for Attorney General. So she comes very, very experienced. But here she makes a statement, and I thought did a phenomenal job of kind of turning around what Democrats meant to be an attack on Trump, and she turned it around on him.
It would not be appropriate for a prosecutor to start with a name and look for a crime. It's a prosecutor's job to start with a crime and look for a name, correct?
Senator, I think that is the whole problem with the weaponization that we have seen the last 4 years and what's been happening to Donald Trump. They targeted Donald Trump. They went after him, actually starting back in 2016. They targeted his campaign. They have launched countless investigations against him. That will not be the case if I am Attorney General. I will not politicize that office. I will not target people simply because of their political affiliation. Justice will be administered even-handedly throughout this country. Senator, we've got to bring this country back together. We've got to move forward, or we're going to lose our country.
All right. The only question I had there was when she says even-handedly, what does that mean? Does that mean fairly? Does that mean going after those who've committed crimes? Or does that mean, okay, well, I'm gonna kind of weigh out the number of Republicans and the number of Democrats that I'm gonna go after? No, I don't think she really means either. What I think she means fairly. But there's got to be there's one thing that has got to happen, and that is that the last 8 years of lawfare that has been taking place, 8 to 9 years of lawfare that has been taking place, that's got to be addressed. You have a Department of Justice that from 2016 has been going after Donald Trump, doing everything possible to make sure that he is not president. That needs to be addressed. Anybody who has done anything illegal, any illegal moves, positions, any sort of putting the thumb on the scale in favor of or in opposition to a political candidate, that needs to be addressed. That is illegal. That needs to be addressed. And if they broke the law, they need to be held accountable. Not because they're a Republican, not because they're a Democrat, but because they broke the law. What Democrats now are saying that Donald Trump is going to do is what the Department of Justice has already been doing in favor of Democrats. Let's be clear about that. Even when Donald Trump was president in 2016, it was his FBI or FBI that was under him that was doing this. Now, Donald Trump, I believe, came in his first term and he knew about the deep state, but he didn't really believe that the law enforcement entities, which had historically kept out of, or at least publicly kept out of politics, I believe he honestly didn't believe that they would go after him the way that they did, that they would be as unfair to him in their treatment as they were. But they were. Think about it. They literally went they went in 2020. In 2020, this is what I'm going to talk to. In 2020, his DOJ went to Facebook and went to social media companies to talk about disinformation. To talk about disinformation, to talk to them in order to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop. That was the DOJ under Donald Trump. That's how much they didn't like him. That's how much the deep state did not like Donald Trump. Well, now he's putting someone over the FBI and over the Department of Justice who not only like him, but like him because he does not want the Department of Justice. He does not want one of the things that I think that is vitally important for people to understand, for people to see here, is that there may be a disproportionate number of folks on the other side of the aisle who are investigated and in some cases brought to justice. That is not because they are Democrats. That will be because a disproportionate number of folks on the opposite side of the aisle, a disproportionate number of people who hate Donald Trump, engaged in illegal activity, in lawfare, in trying to influence politics or trying to influence elections in an unfair manner. That's what I believe. Now, some of this stuff is going to come out and it's just, well, it's not going to be, they're going to determine that it wasn't illegal, that what happened wasn't illegal. But at least it will be brought to light. At least people will see it and people will know. And these are things that have been talked about. Most of the things, if you are a Republican or if you've been watching these shows or watching any of the conservative news networks, you already know the stuff that's going to come out because we've already been talking about it. But a lot of the country doesn't know, and they need to hear this. The fact that a majority of voters voted to elect Donald Trump shows that there are many people who are ready to hear it. There are many who aren't, but there are many who are ready to hear it. And I, for one, am glad to see what will be coming of it in this next term. All right, moving on to our next story. This one's going to be a real brief one, but you know that once again, looks like the deal is done. So it looks like the hostage for ceasefire deal is done. The Hamas is claiming it's a ceasefire deal. Israel is saying it's a hostage deal. Either way, it's the closest that it's ever been. It's looking like it's just about done. Everything largely has been agreed to. But what's funny is you've got the Biden administration. You got Biden and Trump are both claiming credit. And I got to tell you, no, Biden, you don't get credit for this. You don't get credit for it one bit. And I wanted to read a little bit of this. It says here, President-elect Donald Trump was the first to announce a ceasefire deal was reached in Gaza between Israel and Hamas on Wednesday. Israeli officials soon confirmed an agreement was in place to secure the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas since the October 7 atrocities. Quote, "We have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. Thank you," Trump said on Truth Social, his preferred social media platform, at just after noon Eastern. This epic ceasefire agreement could only have happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies, Trump elaborated in a follow-up message with caps as in the original. With this deal in place, my national security team, through the efforts of Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, will continue to work closely with Israel and our allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist-safe haven. Now, the reason why I wanted to point this out, and once again, we know this now is the case, but even the folks who were involved in the negotiation of the process, even they admitted, look, Trump got more done in the last few weeks than Joe Biden did all year. And that's largely because he came in with a big stick and he said, if the hostages are not released, hell will rain down upon you. And they're like, we don't want hell to rain down upon us. Seems kind of simple to me, right? One would think it's kind of simple. Anyway, but Biden is going to take credit for it. And to a certain degree, he gets credit because it happened under his watch. We know. The question is, what will history say? Because history is written by the media and the academics. Well, let's just say there's going to be some revisionist history taking place. Know what I mean? Yeah. All right, moving on to our final story of the day. Once again, this is another story that may not necessarily be newsworthy, but it is ironic. It is once again ironic. And in this particular case, you had the NFL playoffs last weekend. The Green Bay Packers played the Philadelphia Eagles, and there happened to be some Packer fans that were there in Philadelphia. And while Philadelphia fans are not necessarily known for their congeniality, this one particular fan decided to be a little extra special against the opposing team.
After reviewing the play, the runner was short of the goal line.
So as you can see there from the words, he referred to her in a way that was, well, let's just say none too polite. He used the C word, which is a word you just, I'm sorry, but that's there. I get that there's the B word, but the B word is like a word you can say on TV now, oddly enough. But the C word is one you dare not. That's like, oh, no. But here is a guy who's a Philadelphia fan, which, by the way, in and of itself, you kind of expect that from an Eagles fan, from some Philadelphia fan. That's just kind of how they are. Well, but this guy was not just any old Eagles fan. This is a story from TMZ. Eagles fan who dropped C word on Packers supporter fired from DEI consulting job. That's right, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It says here, the Philadelphia Eagles fan who berated a Packers supporter during Sunday's playoff game is out of a job. His employer just announced he has been fired as a result of the viral moment. BTC Partners, a consulting firm that specializes in DEI services and solutions, announced the move Tuesday night, saying project manager Ryan Caldwell's words during the altercation with female cheesehead were highly offensive and misogynistic, which goes against the company's values. What this means, quite frankly, folks, is that many of the people who are out there preaching, and this is not diversity, equity, inclusion, and we need to create safe spaces and environments for everybody. No, they don't believe that. It is a money-making scam, and they want to create safe spaces for them, but they get to do and say whatever they want because whatever they say is justified because, well, they are the enlightened few. They are better than us. They are smarter than us. They are brighter than us. They are better people than us. So they get to call someone who disagrees with them and happens to be from a different part of the country like Green Bay, Wisconsin. They get to call them things like a dumb punt with a C. They get to call them that because, well, they're better and they're more privileged. Anyway, that's just the hypocrisy of it. I just find to be beyond amusing. Anyway, my 2 cents. Anyway, folks, that's now going to bring us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, and get your Hog Holster today on discount. All right, our first video here is going to be brought to you. This is an interesting one because it kind of deals with the fires that took place there here in California, and a woman who had approached Governor Gavin Newsom and was asking for his help. Well, you'll love it. You'll love it.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally, I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the call.
Why is the president not taking your call?
Because it's not going through. So
Why?
I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were... Go. Governor, you got a second?
That was hilarious. For those of you who are just listening to it, you had Gavin Newsom sitting up there talking. In the very end, he runs and jumps into his car as soon as she turns her back. Anyway, that was hilarious. You also had Joe Biden falling asleep. That's why he wasn't taking the call. In any case, this last one is brought to you by our good friends over at the Babylon Bee. Fake news that you can count on. Gavin Newsom rushes into burning building to inform fire victim Trump is bad. Yeah, because that's what he kind of does. That's how Gavin Newsom rolls. All right, folks, that's going to be it for today's program, except we got one more thing we got to do, and that's give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Hitman Industries. Just go to hitmanindustries.net for rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase today. You got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out at cragop.org. And then you've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters at hawgholsters.com. That's HAWG, holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, you can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. And with that, we're going to call it a show. We're going to call it a day. We will be back tomorrow on Throat Punch Thursday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and if you get a chance, make sure to send a few down range for me. Anyway, well, not at me, but, for me. Pew, pew. Holler at you later.